Let's talk about Ephesus. When you picture it, you see this jewel of the Roman Empire, right? All gleaming marble and magnificent temples. But underneath all that splendor, there was this hidden system that powered the entire city, its economy, its grandest households. And it wasn't a system built on stone. It was built on people. This is the story of that foundation. So this really is the one question we have to ask. What was a human life actually worth back then? Because in a city where exotic spices and fine silks were traded every single day, the most valuable commodity of all, well, it was human life itself. Just try to imagine the harbor there. It's just teeming with ships pulling in from all over the Mediterranean. This was the engine of Ephesus. It brought in so much wealth, but it also brought in human cargo. And for tens of thousands of people, this bustling port wasn't a gateway to opportunity. Nope, it was the end of their freedom.
So, how did you end up here? Well, your journey could have started in a dozen different ways. Maybe you were captured in a war on the frontier. Maybe you were snatched by pirates from your coastal village. Or, and this is a tough one, maybe your family was just so poor they had no choice but to sell you to survive. Whatever the reason, your path now leads to one place, the commercial agora, the city's main marketplace.
And that's when you're forced up onto this raised wooden platform. It's called the catasta. Here, they strip you of your clothes, your dignity, everything. You become an object. Potential buyers just circle you, prodding your muscles, checking your teeth, inspecting you for any flaw, just like they would a horse or an ox. Then they hang a wooden placard around your neck. It's called a tiliolus. This isn't your name, it's a price tag. It reduces your entire life, everything you are, to a short list of marketable traits. And get this, in a really chilling twist, this is the direct origin of our modern word title, a word born from a tag declaring ownership of a person. So what's on this titulus? Well, it tells your story, but not the way you'd tell it. It lists your origin. Are you Lysian, Phrygian? The buyer knows what that means, what kind of servant you'll make. Are you educated? A craftsman? Oh, that'll fetch a much higher price. Any defects, like a limp or bad eyesight, have to be declared. And if you've just arrived from overseas, they'd paint your feet with white chalk, a superstition really to ward off foreign diseases. Your whole identity is now just a commodity to be sold. A price is agreed on, a handoff is made, you're sold. As you're led away from the noise and the smell of the agora, you're stepping into the next chapter of your life, from the public market into a private home. So you've been bought by a rich man, and you walk into one of those famous terrace houses of Ephesus. You are surrounded by things you've never even imagined. Stunning mosaics, walls covered in colorful frescoes, the sound of running water from private fountains. It's luxury on a whole different level. But you learn the truth very, very quickly. This beautiful house is not your home. It's a gilded cage. And this chart, well, this shows you exactly where you stand. Look at that bottom row. Slaves made up maybe a third of the entire city's population, putting you at the absolute bottom of this rigid hierarchy. You aren't a person with rights. You are property. The Romans even had a word for it, res. It means a thing. Your owner has absolute, total authority over your life. Your life inside this house is a complete paradox. You have zero personal space, no privacy whatsoever. At night, you might just sleep on a mat at the foot of your master's bed or on the cold floor right outside his door. You have to be constantly present, ready to jump up and serve at a moment's notice. But at the same time, you're trained to be completely invisible, to see nothing and hear nothing. Now, it's important to understand that not all slaves had the same fate, not even close. Your skills, what your owner did for a living, and just pure dumb luck would decide the kind of life you were going to lead. The spectrum of servitude was absolutely vast. For example, maybe your owner is a physician. If you can read and write, you might become his assistant. Your days are spent preparing remedies, keeping records, a world away from the poor souls sent to the mines or the quarries, where life was often short and incredibly brutal. But even in a good position like that, you are never ever free from the whims or cruelty of your master. Every day, you watch the city's commerce flowing all around you, and you remembered this number, 5 denarii. That was the customs tax, the tax the state charged for every single slave brought through the port of Ephesus. It's just a cold, hard number that hammers home the official view of your life. You are an import, a taxable good. But even in this system of total ownership, there was a flicker of hope, a difficult, often distant path to freedom called manumission. And the key to this whole path was something called the Peculium. You can think of it as a small allowance, or maybe some property your master might let you keep. It could be tips, a tiny share of a business deal you helped with, or payment for extra work. Now, legally it wasn't yours. Your master could take it back at any time, but it was the one tool you had to maybe, just maybe, buy your own freedom. But getting free was rarely simple. I mean, it could take decades of loyal service just to save up enough money. You had to earn your master's trust, slowly build up that peculium, and then negotiate a price. And even if you pulled it off, you didn't become a completely free man. You became a freedman, which meant you still owed your former master, now called your patron, loyalty and services for the rest of your life. So, for the very few who actually navigated this treacherous path to freedom, what happened next? It's pretty remarkable, actually. Some didn't just survive. They thrived, and they left a permanent mark on the very city that had once enslaved them. Can you imagine that? Walking through the city and seeing these huge monuments built not by emperors or aristocrats, but by people who had once been bought and sold as property? This was the reality for a small but really significant number of freedmen in Ephesus. Take a look at this. This is the actual inscription on the monumental gate leading into the commercial agora, the exact same marketplace where people were sold. This gate was built by two former slaves of the Emperor Augustus himself. What an incredibly powerful statement, right? To build a grand entrance to the very place that symbolized their bondage. And if you want an even more mind-bending story, consider Tiberius Claudius Secundus. He was a former slave who became so rich and so influential that he was honored with a massive statue. Okay, but who paid for it? The Guild of Slave Dealers. It's just a stunning, tangled example of the social dynamics in Ephesus. The very people who traded in human lives could publicly celebrate the success of a man who was once their merchandise. And all of this leaves us with one final lingering question. Guys like Mazeus, Mithridates, and Secundus, they achieved wealth, they achieved public honor, they could fund gates and have statues raised in their name. But in a society that was so obsessed with status and where you came from, could they or their children ever truly escape the memory of the catasta? Could they ever wash away the chalk from their feet? That is the complex and really haunting legacy of slavery in the Roman world.